All right, in this video, we are going to do a little bit of photo restoration to old images such as this one. When you are doing photo restoration, there is a bit of an art to it, as well as technical skills using in Photoshop to try to fix these things. Um, Additionally, we'll probably talk about a little bit of colorization techniques that you can also do once the image is restored to maybe add a little bit of life or bring it more into modern era. And useful techniques to kind of adjust things such as contrast throughout the image as well. So this image right here of this young man here uh, uh, is pretty heavily damaged. Um, it has, these creases and things through it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use various tools such as clone stamp as well as healing brush tool to remove these things and try to, reverse time, so to say, on this. The first thing I like to do on these is I like to make a copy of this. Always save a copy of your original. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click on the background layer to convert this to a layer. And I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to make a copy. And again, to make copies in Photoshop, you can just Alt drag on the layer. So if I hold on Alt drag the layer a little bit, it will make a copy. Either one of these will be fine. I just tend to like to keep a backup of everything, just in case things go horribly, horribly wrong. It's also a good idea to, of course, save incrementally. I'm just going to do Control Shift S and save this out, and click on the desktop and just call this Photo Restore and save it as a PSD. Hit save and hit OK. And then if I do another one, maybe I'll call it Photo Restore 2 or so on. Okay, now the one downside to editing, doing photo restoration is it's inherently a destructive process, meaning that you only have your undos to go back to. We can do a few things with history, which we're going to talk about, where we can take snapshots of it, which we will be doing. So a history tool is very valuable here to save snapshots. These add a little bit to your file size, but sometimes they can be well worth it if you don't want to save, a bunch of increments as you go. So we'll talk about that. But just know that you are working destructively. So if you don't have enough undos to get back there, you'll have to load up an older scene, or again, if you save out these snapshots. So just be cautious that you don't go too fast without really, like, did I like that? I did not like that. All right. So tools that you will be using. On the left-hand side, we have a lot of tools. There's a lot of new ones that Photoshop have added over the recent few years here, such as the healing tools that look kind of like a little band-aid by default here with like a little selection around it. These are great tools for this. And if you click on this, we have spot healing brush tool, patch tool, content aware, red eye tool. We won't be using all of these, but there's a few in here I like to try. A lot of them are very similar, but sometimes they do certain things better. Like we might use the spot healing brush tool and the healing brush tool. I doubt we'll use the patch tool on this particular case, but there's certain things we could try. The other tool that we'll use a lot heavily in this is the stamp tool, which is 2 down. The stamp tool has um, clone stamp and pattern stamp. In this case, we'll probably only use the clone stamp tool, but this is a pretty powerful tool. This is the old school tool way of doing things. So we'll talk about this one as well. So let's go ahead and start with the healing brush tools. Now I'm going to go ahead and just try showing you how spot healing brush tool works first. And then, like I said, we'll probably go down probably only about 3 of these for this particular one. I don't see us using the other ones on this particular one. So the spot healing brush tool is a tool, and I'm zooming in here with Control Plus and using the spacebar to clicking and holding the spacebar to drag the scene around. The spot healing brush tool, what it tries to do, it's pretty straightforward and actually made things a lot easier for the more introductory Photoshop users, is what it tries to do is you sit here and you basically just click and paint. And it does this little darker color here. This is just showing you what it's going to manipulate. So I'm just holding this down. I'm not letting go. And just kind of showing you. And what it's going to do is it's going to do a content aware sampling. What that means is Photoshop is actually going to think about it and try to figure out, like, oh, you want to remove this, and they've done a great job over the years refining this. And if I let go, it took it away. Now that was super simple. The problem with content aware is it did a pretty good job this time. is it's an algorithm done by really smart people, but it can't possibly know if it's doing the correct job. So if you try to do something over here, like for here, I have a feeling it's going to fail, but we'll see. It's going to go horribly, horribly wrong because what it's sampling, it can't do that. So if it won't work, it won't work. You have to try another tool. But for things like here that are heavily patterned, this particular healing stamp tool, this was for the very first one, the spot healing brush tool, is amazing for this kind of stuff because it's just so simple to use. Like it might have a problem right here where the hair meets this background, but right here, not a problem. Not a problem. Probably not a problem. Let's find out. Not a problem. When we get to the edges of this piece, this is the actual edge of the thing. It might be fine, but if this, let's say this was an image that extended further and this was an edge of the paper, like you had more image back here, I don't in this case, it would definitely probably have a problem with that, but it probably will be fine here. Just fine. Same thing, maybe fine. See? This is really great. This is a powerful tool, made this kind of stuff a lot easier. It does soften things up. I don't know if you guys can kind of see it, but it is blurry. It doesn't get a little noise in there. That is a problem with the tool, but for how simple it is to use, it's great. Like I said, I skirted the edge there and cheated and got rid of most of that. So very simple. Again, you can this tool uses the brush functions. So there's one of the ones you need in here is the bracket keys. The bracket keys make the brush bigger and smaller. So you can see brush bigger and smaller, left bracket smaller, right bracket bigger. So you can make these bigger and smaller, and you can kind of get the low-hanging fruit, so to say, of these really patterned pieces really quickly with Photoshop. And I like to do it in little patches like this. So it's getting a little blurry over here, which is fine. You know, doing a great job so far. So real easy. That's getting a little patterny, but it's still, I would say, it looks better than it did before. So you can kind of come over in multiple passes. Why I do generally small parts, because it's a content-aware function. It's looking at it, analyzing what you had selected, and looking at what's around it. So if you do like really big ones, like a whole lot, it will get confused. See, bad things happen to the side of this person's head. So it's better to do it in small runs. So small runs like that really go a long way. Like whenever there is an edge like this, it's going to get confused. You might be able to do it if you do a small thing and you follow the guide like this. So if you follow this where this hair meets, it did a better job. But if I go this way, it's going to get, well, it did pretty good. You did pretty good. So maybe I was wrong. So if it goes that way, it's harder to analyze. So it's looking like that. But certain things like this is just too much. This is too much to ask of it. So, and again, we cannot fix those with this tool. So this can't fix everything, but man, they make it much easier down the road with these kinds of things. So you can see we can probably restore a lot of this with this tool. This tool can be very powerful, very powerful. Like I said, it's gotten better. The first iteration of it was, you know, maybe it's just me misremembering, but it was okay. But I feel like the algorithm has improved over the years, and it's become pretty strong. Then there's other tools that work off this, what's called content-aware fill behavior, which they've improved upon over time. All right, so how can we fix this one? Well, I can already kind of shorten the curve here. We can't really use the healing brush tool. Well, maybe. The patch tool is actually for larger areas, so I don't really think we can use this one. But maybe I'll come back to that. Because I'm here, I want to talk about this. The healing brush tool, how this healing brush tool works. So I'm gonna try the second one here. The healing brush tool is a new improvement on the stamp tool, which I mentioned the stamp tool at the beginning of the lecture. I haven't shown it yet, but it kind of, what it does is the stamp tool is very blunt instrument, but it will do exactly what you tell it to do. The first tool that the one I actually showed you is the spot healing brush tool. It's using the content aware algorithm, and it's doing most of the thinking for you. It's doing the heavy lifting. And then if I had to talk about the healing brush tool, it's kind of a mix. So again, I haven't shown the blunt instrument one yet, but just know that this one's kind of semi algorithmic basically when we're trying to figure things out. So what this is going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and move down this one because that way it'd be easier, is this uses the stamp tool's functions to sample an area, and then you paint over another area, and it tries to do a little bit of thinking about it, and then tries to solve it. So what you do is you set a sample source. So for example, and again, this all uses the brush engine, so I can, brackets left bracket bigger, smaller, right bracket big, smaller. You also don't have to use a circular brush. Sometimes I do find using a more patterned brush goes a little bit ways, a little bit ways to help, make it not look so repetitive if you want to try that. But honestly, I usually use that kind of technique on larger areas. This is not that big, so I wouldn't bother to do that in this particular case. But it could, if you want to try that, maybe you're having problems with your own stuff, try using a different brush size. Again, you hit F5 key to bring up your brushes, and you can choose different brush shapes here. So like you should be able to switch these out. And you can do them here as well. Brush shapes, change them here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sample. And again, to sample, so you hold on the Alt key, and you can see that the cursor changes slightly. This is a little crosshair. This is setting the source of whatever you're going to sample from. Now, generally what you want to do is you kind of want to go around and keep to the area. So you're probably going to be working with smaller brushes. For example, right here, I'm going to hold on Alt, sample the hair. Then I'm going to come over here, and you can kind of see it. It's like this dark spot. What it's doing is I sampled here. That's locked. And when I move the mouse, and I'm going to mess this up really bad just to showcase what it's doing. When I let go of Alt, next time I click and hold, you can see there's a little crosshair where the hair was, and then I'm just moving the mouse up and down, and it's sampling that pattern from that area and trying to mix it in with this one. It's a little weird to me, but it is doing that. So it's sampling from there, and you can kind of see it sampling, and then I let go, and you can kind of see it made this. So what it kind of is doing is trying to sample this pattern here and getting into here. So what this is good for, I'm going to undo that. This is good, like, I don't know if you guys can see it show up in the video, but it's a little soft and blurry here from that brush tool. What this is really good to do is sample from that area and kind of go back over this to get rid of that blurriness that sometimes you can see. So that's what it's great for. And you can sometimes sample nearby, for example, like this, and paint over this. So you can see I can get that. But you can see if I go over the same area, sometimes it doesn't quite work. It's kind of trying to blend these. And that's what this tool, I don't really want to do that. This is kind of blending those. So I'm going from this really dark to this really light. It's kind of trying to blend them together, and that's not what we want here. We want to completely get rid of this. So this tool is really good for going over areas that are soft or need a little bit more of that pattern of the natural pattern that's developed over age, because I don't want to get rid of the old-timey photo patterning that we're seeing here. I just want to fix the damage. We want to keep that. So like tool's great for getting that back in those areas that have gotten too soft. Like this area right here is kind of softer. So maybe this would be a great area to try this on. Come in here and get some of this back. So I'm seeing like this whatever this is. I don't really like this. So I can rough it up. I don't mind that it's lighter, but you can see that I'm getting that pattern back in there. So this tool's great for that. Now, I can't use it here. Let me take a look down. Let me take a look down. I don't think it's a very good use of it, but I'm gonna go ahead and try just to showcase the tool. The next tool down here is the patch tool. This is a great tool for large areas. Like I use this for like if you need to like replace like large patches of grass or something like that. Real estate editing, things that are really big, or like clouds or skies. You got something you need to get through there that's messed up. That's good for that stuff. I don't think this is honestly big enough for this kind of area, but I'm gonna go ahead and just try it. So the patch tool here, and I just clicked on that same area, click the patch tool. You draw sections that you want to copy from. So like for example, when I had that big hole over here, the patch tool would have been good for that. I did manage to fix that with the other tool, but if the other tool wouldn't have fixed that, the patch tool would have been great for that. I'm talking about moving up in the history. I'll show you this. I'm talking about this thing. So if the healing brush tool didn't take care of that, I'm honestly surprised it did. The patch tool would have been a great solution for that. So let me go ahead and show you how this works. Is you click and draw, and you draw a selection. So I'm just drawing a selection like a lasso tool. I'll let go, and it makes a selection. And then I can drag this selection to another. I always get it backwards. I think I got it backwards. I always do that. And then I let go. Yeah, I got it backwards. So I apologize. Control D to deselect. This is good. I'm gonna make mistakes. Draw the area that I want to replace. Sorry. Then click and drag to the area that I want to sample to, and drag down, and you can see that it replaced all of that area in sampled. And again, it's doing an algorithm to try to kind of blend it together. So you can see it sampled from here and dragged this down. This was really great to get that pattern out here. So if I hit Control H doesn't deselect, it just hides the selection because I find this distracting. So I'm just going to hide the selection so you guys can see. And you can see perhaps here that there's a little bit of a gap there. I mean, the algorithm did a pretty good job. We can kind of see it in there. There's a little line in there. And this would, again, be a good example of, I'm going to now Control D, even though you don't see anything, deselect. This would be a good example of coming back to our healing brush tool. Make this a little bit smaller. Alt click, some sampling up here in this area, and then I'm just going to trace this line and kind of blend out that hard edge that you saw there. This healing brush tool will probably take care of this the same way, but the patch tool is good for large areas. So you don't have to spend your entire time trying to do that. So that's the patch tool. And honestly, the smaller areas down here, the spot healing brush tool would probably do just fine as well. Again, that's the reason why it's the default on there, because it's pretty powerful. You can get rid of quite a bit, especially when it's very patternized, like this person's sweater here. So you can get rid of quite a bit. I think that was a button there, but I can't really quite tell, so I'm going to get rid of it. All right, sweater vest, powerful stuff. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and maybe try this little area where the sleeves are. It picked up this pattern, but I like what it did here. That's a little messed up, but I can get rid of these things either by just doing another go over like that. Maybe do this one. Maybe do this area right here. Try this area. Oh, I'm hitting Alt, thinking of other things. So I don't like what it's doing there. Kind of worked better when I went that way. All right. I probably should talk about. I'm getting a lot of edits on this already. I mean, as you can see, and I'm probably going to keep going. But what I like to do is I like to start making. First off, Control S to save. I like to start saving parts in the history in case I mess up, or if I want to refer back to at some point. History is this icon right here, which I don't know if it's on by default in Photoshop. I doubt it is. So if it isn't, you don't see this little icon that looks like 3 dots with an arrow pointing up. It's under Windows, History, and then it opens it up, and you can dock it anywhere you want. So I usually dock it to the side right here. I use History quite a bit, especially in digital illustration when I want to get back to something. Sometimes I'll overpaint something, then knock it back using History, because I can do thousands of painting strokes and then go back to it. And again, you can use all these tools in conjunction with like layers and history and whatnot. So what history does is, let's say I don't like what it did here, and I have just as many undos. History only tracks as many undos as you have. So if I look back here, and this is just for the case of showing the tool, click here, you can see this is damaged or something, or maybe I liked, like I said, that this particular thing. Maybe I wanted to keep it. What you can do is you can go back to that part and paint that area back. I don't know why you would do that in this case, but you could. So what you do is you mark this area. Click there. So that's where it's marked. I go back to my most current one. So this is, you can move up and down. If I start drawing now, I will get rid of everything. So I want to make sure I go back down to where I saved. And then I'm going to use the history brush tool, which is the Y key, or this icon right here on the left-hand side. And again, all the same brush functions, control brackets, left bracket, right bracket, and all the brush tip shapes and all that stuff all work for this. If I start painting this back, you can see I can bring back those things. And I have a low opacity currently set on this, so it's going back to that. so I can paint back. Now again, I don't really have a reason to do this. I just wanted to showcase this now while I was talking about it. There might be, fortunately, there probably will be things when we get to color contrast. Maybe we might be able to use it there, but I do want to get it at some time right now. All right, so that's the history brush tool. It's a great tool for that. I do encourage it a lot. This one's often underused by a lot of even intermediate Photoshop users, and it's a great function to get back into things. Okay, so we have covered that, and we've covered under this thing. We covered all we're going to cover, at least in this particular case, is um, spot healing brush, patch tool, content aware tool. I don't really think there's a good case for this one. So, you know what? I think this is. I'm just gonna try this, and I think this is gonna fail. But let's see. Yeah, you can do some crazy stuff with content aware fill move. So what I did is, if I move this, it tries to basically you know, and I just trace it kind of like the patch tool, but this is reverse, is why I get confused all the time. The area that you want to move away from, and then hit return, and you can see that it tries to fill that area in this case. So I mean, this would be cool if you were doing, like you wanted to do something super like creepy, but in this particular case, it's not going to be very useful in my opinion. If you wanted to move something from somewhere else to something else, like let's say like a car in the middle of a field, you could try moving it, and it would try to fix the area that it moved too. In this case, not useful for us. As useful. So all right, so I talked about the three content aware fills. Not move is not really for us in this particular case. But I did talk about at the very beginning the stamp tool. The stamp tool is like right here. I don't think it has a quick key anymore. I don't remember if it does. S. Yes, it does. It still has a quick key. S. So the S key for stamp. This I've already showed you the healing. What was it called? The healing brush. The healing stamp tool. Which, yeah, the healing brush tool. Which uses the same thing. The stamp tool was first, but the functions work the same. The difference between the stamp tool and the healing brush tool is the healing brush tool uh, uh, tries to move the pattern and fix the patterns. This one just tries to copy the pixels and move the pixels. It doesn't do anything other than that. So this is great for fixing areas that you just want to get rid of them. But the downside is you have to be more mindful of how you do things with this tool. So you can see already that it's got a sample here, probably because it has a sample left over from my last function. So again, if I want to sample an area, I hold on Alt, and right now it's kind of a harder brush. So if I use Shift left bracket to soften it up some, it obeys again all your brush stuff here. So I soften it up a bit, Alt, click that sample, make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to stamp that out. And again, it doesn't do any thinking for you. So you have to get more mindful, and a little more mindful of the flow of the pixels here to kind of fix these things. So this is a little more, I don't want to say requires a little more art, but you do. And you also don't need to keep it 100%. So if you want to tone it down, in this case, I'm not going to do that. But if you need to tone it down some, you can. But you can come in here and get rid of these as well. So this used to be this is the beginning of the tool, and you can see how far they've come. So like this is what's required, early these kinds of restoration type things had to do, at least in Photoshop. All right, so you can see there's a few here. This again, I could have done this with our new and improved spot healing brush tool, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to get to this area that we couldn't fix with the spot healing brush tool. And that's why it brings us to this one. This tool is definitely harder to use. Start out with the other tool. It's so much easier now. But when you get to things that it cannot do, this is probably where you're going to start going to. You're going to go to the clone stamp tool. And again, in this case, I'm going to Alt click here, the hair, and I'm going to paint this down. And the great thing is what you can do is you can do a little bit of this to kind of get your some of this back, and then you can go back with the the healing stamp tool. I always get the names messed up. Spot healing brush tool, and then see if that's you did enough to help it along. So what I'm doing here is holding down Alt because this is where the hairline is, and I keep hitting the same button over and over. Oh, I'm on the wrong tool. Stamp. Hold down Alt, click sample here, and then I'm kind of feeling this out, trying to get this a little bit. And this, like I said, this is generally you want to. It's a powerful tool, but you do want to be careful with this tool because when you start doing very splotchy stuff, it's people that tend to overuse this tool. So you got to be more careful with this, a lot more careful with this tool. Now, what I also could do, I'm gonna go ahead and cheat just to kind of show you guys, is I might copy this eyebrow and paste it on this other side. There's nothing saying I can't. So what I might do is use the lasso tool, the L key, draw this out, and then I'm gonna feather this selection. So we don't want to copy down and paste it on the other side because it's a very hard edge. So we want to feather the selection, and then if the quickie used to be Shift F6. Oh, it still is. Yay! Me and my quickies. I love my quickies. If you don't like quickies, shame on you, but you can go up to Select, Modify, Feather. And again, this is in pixels. This number can vary based on the size of your image. If it's very high quality, this will have to be a bigger number to get the similar results of what I show in the video. And it's a guessing game. Right now, I'm gonna guess 10. I don't know, 10 or 20. I'm gonna guess 20, and I'm gonna hit OK. And you can see it kind of shift the selection a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, Control C, and then Control V, and it pasted on a new layer. And I'm just gonna move this layer and flip it. So I have this layer. See, there it is. It's over there. And you can see what the feather did. It kind of made a very feathered, soft selection. I'm gonna hit Control T to select this, which auto selects it and transform this. Once you have it, you can click on this and flip horizontally. I'm going to bring this back over here. And yes, you could just leave it at that. And I mean, I literally could come in here with the eraser tool and probably E key for the eraser tool. Come in here with my brush stuff. Hopefully you guys pay attention to those early lectures. And then kind of erase this up and kind of fix this. That's totally fine. You definitely get the job done with that. The one thing you need to be careful of is lighting. So like this is the darker side, this is in shadow. So what you can do is you can maybe play with your layers here. And this might go horribly wrong, but that's the thing, you got to try it out. You can try setting this to darken, which what that will say is only the darker pixels will drop. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit better over this part, but honestly, not as much. So what I might do is I might go ahead and go back to normal. It's always worth a shot. And what I might do is I might just kind of just turn my opacity way low, 20%. And then again, this is doing where the art starts coming in. Start kind of erasing this area back where I know the crack isn't at. So I'm erasing this, and I might say this is good. This would be an example where I could make a snapshot of my histories. I tend not to do that. I tend to just make copies. So this is backed up in case this goes horribly wrong. So there's my backup of my edited layer. Here's just a copy of the original. Here's my eye that I duplicated. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to merge these two together. But I always make a backup because in case I mess things up. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have to merge these together to do my next step that I want to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and merge, soften this, wrong one. I'm going to go ahead and merge these two together. So select both those layers by selecting one, holding Shift, select the other, or Control work as well. And I'm going to hit Control E to merge. So the Control E to merge them. And again, if I mess this up so bad, I can go back and I have a backup. And I could actually even use this layer as so I can blend these between them if I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to kind of get the rest of this with I think we can be fine with the spot healing brush tool. And that's the reason why I had to merge these, because I want it to use both layers in its algorithm. And it did an awful, awful job. Awful job. Usually does so well. Okay, let's try the healing brush tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample from, again, this will kind of add that pattern back in, hopefully. And yeah, I'll say it's better, but not great. Still not great. So I'm trying to get rid of that softness, trying to get that pattern back in. And this is the right reason I make a copy, is because I want to actually use the one below it too. I want to get some of that dark back in, so that might be fine. So I'm sticking to the healing brush tool right now, and what I'm trying to do is just get the pattern to be something I like. And then what I might do is tone down the opacity a little bit. So like this is what it looks like before, after. I don't like what I did, to be completely honest. But it's better than nothing. I'm not satisfied with it, I should say. His eyebrow is definitely much more pronounced over here. And this is why we make save copies, so I can compare. All right, so I'm going to say that didn't work. I'm going to make another copy of this, again, because I'm going to try something different. I'm just going to try using straight up the stamp tool. And I'm just going to try to make this brush a lot smaller. I'm just going to do this much slower here. Now you can also come in, if you feel comfortable with it or have the skill, you could probably just straight up brush this, but I'm just going to make this smaller and get in here really close and start getting this much smaller. And I think we'll do a better job. And you can, as you can see, sometimes it takes you more than one try. And this is why you save backups and copies, because the picture can get away from you. Sounds so, you know, like fortune cookie talk, but it can. So I'm kind of coming in here and I'm kind of sampling these areas, and I'm doing really small. And I'm constantly tapping the Alt here. So I'm sampling an area, coming in here, sampling an area, kind of, and I'm building out his eyebrow a little bit more. So I'm really zoomed in here, kind of building out that eyebrow, getting that a little bit better. Like I said, so far I'm thinking this is better, but I'll compare with the original here in a moment. And this might be a good sample right here. This might be a good sample where we come in with the healing brush tool, because again, it kind of fixes that pattern, I think, because sometimes you get too noisy with the, there we go, I like what it did there. All right, so let's compare. So this is the original. This was my first attempt. Nope, that was a failure. And then here was my second attempt. And I think it's a little too hard edged right here. So I'm going to kind of come in here, and what I think I might do, so I might try the spot healing brush tool, and what I might do is just slightly trace the edges here. Nope, that was bad. And there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and try to soften this edge. Now the way we could do that, like I said, I tried to do it with the spot healing brush tool, but it didn't work. So what I might try to do instead is the stamp tool, but maybe just make it a little softer. And also maybe turn down the opacity. You can do that. And then kind of soften it a little bit. It was too hard edged. So you can see that now we're getting into more of the art of it. So I turned down the opacity to 20%, and then kind of got it. And I think it's coming on pretty good. He definitely has a much more pronounced eyebrow on this side. Perhaps, like I said, because this is the side that's in shadow. I doubt it's it's the photography and lighting, not really more of a feature, but I didn't like the way it looked before. So again, I'm just kind of softening this whole thing. And again, I'm now alt sampling. My opacity is really low. And I'm kind of just tracing the edges of it. And I'm sampling up here. When I draw across the top, I'm sampling down here. And twist across the bottom. Remember, your number keys on your keyboard, they change your opacity. So if you want to be 100%, 0 key. If you want 10%, 1 key, and so on. Now this ear is a little bit more messed up. I'm not as concerned about the ear as I'm gonna fix it, but I'm not as concerned about the ear as, say, you know, the eyes. The eyes are a much more important feature for most people. So I'm gonna try to fix this as best I can. And then again, I'm kind of just doing my knowledge of ears here to kind of fix this, but honestly, it's a little harder. What I might have to do is I might have to try. I'm gonna throw this layer away because I don't need it. I might have to do the same thing I did with the eye that failed, but I think will work for the ear. So I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to feather it by going Shift F6. 20 is probably too big. Again, I kind of dialed it in. Like I said, you're guessing. So I'm going to dial, let's say I'm going to do 5. Control C, Control V. Drag this ear over here. I'm going to flip it horizontally. And then what I want is I want to set this probably to something that mixed. I'm going to try some of our layers here. This is the top or up here more. We could try lighten. Screen might, no, screens look awful. Overlay looks okay, better than the color. So we could try doing, let me try this real quick. Yeah, that works pretty good. All right, so what I did was I set it to overlay. So I set this layer to overlay. And the problem with overlay is it's going to use the color, and this does have a sepia tone to it, so it's going to use the color. And it's going to create this hot spot. One trick you can do is you can control U, which is hue saturation, and take out all this color, which will minimize this some. And so I hit OK. And you can see it's kind of doing a lot better job of forming the ear up there. It's not perfect, but and then what I'm doing is I'm just using the eraser tool and going really low opacities, and I'm painting because I want to use as little of it as possible, you know, and kind of getting that back. So it's coming along. There we go. You can see. I don't hate that. Yes, it definitely changed it, lightened up the ears some, but I'm okay with that. Like I said, I'm a little more forgiving on the ears than the eyes. There's my original edit. We got a few more things to paint out here, but on these ones, I'll probably just go back to our spot healing brush tool, very small size, and get rid of these, you know, uniformly. All right, it's coming along pretty good, I think. We've got a few more here that I'm just going to use the spot healing brush tool, which this is what this is good for. Really small areas, you know, pimples or anything like that. This is a great tool for them. There is a filter called noise, like this. What old photos get sorry, not noise, dust and scratches. It's antiquated filter, in my opinion. It's kind of older, but it does hit everything. So if you're getting impatient and you want to get rid of this stuff, it might be worth a shot. I personally don't know. I mean, I'll give it a shot because you never know. But if you come up to filter, click on this and go down to I think it's under noise. Yes, noise, dust and scratches. What it does is it tries to analyze a photo and get rid of all the little dust and scratches that might be on it. So like I said, this one's pretty old, but let's give it a shot. And you can see it loads up a preview of it, but it does do it here, and you can turn the preview on and off. So it's very subtle on, you might have show up in the video, but it's very subtle. You can increase its, obviously its radius, which will make it more pronounced. This should mess it up really bad. Kind of cool stylized picture if you wanted to try something, maybe make it look more like a painting or something. Great if you were trying to stylize a bunch of stuff, so you can do something like that if you really wanted to. Not really what we're trying to do here, but you can increase that to increase it. And the threshold, what the threshold generally does, it's an attribute you see in lots of different things. What the threshold will do is it uses how it works, and this is getting very technical, but how generally a lot of things in Photoshop works, it looks at the contrast between dark and light pixels to figure out when it should do something for its algorithm, and that threshold will increase that threshold that it'll do it. So the effect should be it will not do it as much, but it can behave differently based on what kind of filters or where it's this particular attribute is being applied. So it kind of changes up what it actually samples, which actually kind of had an interesting result. Never actually played with like that. So it actually did a pretty good job, I thought, when I increased the threshold. So like you saw areas like this ear where it's really obvious that there's a nick here, it got it without me having to do it. So it did a pretty good job. Now the problem with these things is sometimes it'll destroy features like, you know, the shine in an eyeball or something where you want them, or maybe like if a woman has lip gloss or something, I don't know, I'm just saying, it might destroy those things and you don't want to. So this is what you do. You go ahead and do the filter. 90% of this I like, we'll say. I hit OK, and then what you do is you use that history palette that I've already shown you. You step back one, because right there's my dust and scratches. Just click on the left right here, and then I come back in the areas with the history brush over here and paint back those areas. Again, like in this case, the eye, you know, maybe the lips, you know. I mean, I probably should have went more overboard, but this is exactly what the history palette's for. If you use filters that hit everything, but they unfortunately destroy something else along with your you know, the things that are improving, you just use the history brush to step back into those things and paint back the things that you didn't want it to affect. So so don't be alarmed if you do a filter and future filters that you use and you're like, dang, I like 90% of this, but whatever, this is broken. That's what the history palette is for. And my history palette is not at 100%. So let me make that change real quick. Paint those back. There we go. And there we go. So you can zoom out, and it's coming along. You know, if I also use this as a step back before and after, you can see before and after. There's still this bottom piece right here, but there's some little dots in here. But I'm not gonna keep the video short. I'm not gonna. That's good. So a couple other things that you can do. Again, I'm gonna make a copy of this just because I like to be safe. This is how I generally make backups. Control S to save. Is a couple other things you might want to try. Now, this particular photo is not that bad, but some photos that you get that are older can be very washed out or losing detail. And what you might want to do is go in there and increase the contrast in certain things or overall. Now, again, this one doesn't really have that particular case, but sometimes you might get like fading on one side of an image. I'll kind of mimic it maybe. I'll say maybe it gets sunspot or faded. You know, maybe it does something like you see images that do this kind of have this kind of problem. They do this kind of thing where they have something like this, or you know, they have something like that in them. You know, where they have this fading or something like that. So these sometimes you might want to fix those things. How you would fix that is kind of what I just did there in reverse. You would make large selections. Very large selections. Don't be afraid to make very large selections with very, very heavy feathers. So again, to make a selection, you use the lasso tool, the L key. To make a feather, Shift F6, and you feather it. And you see very large selections, and then you would use the editing tools, which to be shown to try to get it back. In fact, you know what? This is not, I don't believe in damage to the video, the thing, but this side of his face is much lighter. So you know what? Maybe I'll try to even it out a little bit. Maybe I will make a selection here. And I'm just kind of drawing this area. Again, really big feathers selections. Oops, wrong quick key. Shift F6. 50 is still a bit too big in my case. I'll do 20. And then I'm going to hit Control H to hide the selection. So there is a selection here. Just know there is a selection, and it is feathered. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to, actually I'm not going to hit anything, I'm going to use quick keys. Well, I should show you guys where it is. Under Image, Adjustments, Curves, which is a great one, which we'll be trying, which the quick key is Control M. I like this one a lot. This is a little harder to use. I skipped this one last time, but I'm going to use it this time. Control M for curves. Brings up curves, and this oftentimes scares a lot of intro students. So this curve shows the amount of pixels or the brightness of pixels in color through like a histogram on a graph. How this works is if I want to adjust these, I can click anywhere on this line and add a point. And after I've added a point, I can click and drag that and adjust this. Now, the reason this one's so powerful is because it does a very naturalistic job of editing things, where brightness contrast is very absolute. It just kind of hits them. The curves will let you add in areas that need it. So in this particular case, it needs it in this particular region. Oops, I accidentally added another point. If you actually ever do that, click and hold on a point and drag it off the grid. It will delete a point. So it's good that happened. So I can sit here and add these points. You can see, come on. You can see I can darken this. Now if I hit preview, turn this on and off, you can see I added a bit. And again, very large feathered selections. In fact, I could even go more feathered, I think, in this case. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and hit OK because I like what I did. And then I'm going to undo that. This is a little cheating trick here, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to undo this. And my problem was I think the feather should be bigger. So I'm going to, again, there is a selection here. It's just hidden. See, there it is. And Shift H toggles on and off that selection. I'm going to feather this selection some more. Shift F6. I'm going to make this feather bigger. Now, it is technically different because it's already feathered once, and I'm going to do another feather, but that should be fine. Because it's feathering it twice, basically. I'll do 30 in that case. Control H. Now, if I were to hit Control M again, it would bring back up curves, but here's a little trick for you. The only reason I said OK is this. I'm going to cancel this. If you hold down Alt, and this works for all adjustments, so I'm holding Control M is the quick key to bring up curves. If you hold down Alt, and I'm going to hit Control M as well, it will bring up the last settings that you used because I didn't want to have to redo them. I was being lazy. So I encourage you to be lazy too. It saves you time. So I didn't want to have to refine them in case it was really difficult. You can do that. Just can't, click OK, undo it, and then go back and hold on Alt and then hit Control M, and you'll bring back whatever you did. Or if you want to apply that same edit to something different. So you can see there, I did that. Now, I don't think this needs it, but just to kind of explore this tool some more, I deselected Control D, though you didn't see anything because it was hidden. Maybe I'll come in here and say, you know what, I want to make this background. And I'm just tracing this. I'm doing a very loose tracing job with this lasso. And then, again, you hold on Shift to add to selections. So I'm drawing that lasso. I made a mistake up here, so Alt to take away. I'm making little selections. There you go. There's my selections. I can do a better job around this ear and this face. There you go. Don't forget from our last lectures how we talked about if you don't like this method, you can also use the Q key, which is quick mask. And you can literally paint using your brush tool, all your brush settings in here. So again, if red is one thing, which uses black, and then white, swapping the colors to take it away. So you can modify your selections by using the Q key, quick mask, or you can straight up draw lassos. There's lots of ways of making selections as we previously discussed. Anyway, so I made the selection. I'm going to feather this, Shift F6. I'm not going to go as big. Maybe I'll do like 10. Again, I'm kind of guessing. I'm going to hide this selection because I don't want to see it right now when I'm doing this. And I'm just going to use curves to darken this. Maybe I'm exploring now, enhancing the picture, or maybe I want to lighten this whole thing up, or maybe I'm just wanting mess with this, just kind of showcase some more stuff here. You can see we're kind of doing that. So I'll darken just a little bit, the background just a little bit, make everything else pop a little bit more. So just a little bit in the mid-tones in this particular case, and I'm going to hit OK. So Control D to deselect, because there is a selection there, even if it's hidden. You can kind of see before and after. We got a little bit darker here, a little dark in the background. That works. Now, if you have the opposite, this is definitely not the case. If you have the opposite, maybe sometimes things are too dark, Don't forget, one of my favorite ones here is image adjustments, shadows, highlights. This might be actually, the highlights might actually be good for here. So let's find out. There is no quick key for this one. So under image adjustments, shadows, highlights, what it does is it tries to open up the shadows and open up the and reveal the highlights, but doesn't do that by default. So this is a simple tool to use. You just drag the sliders back and forth. So you can see it opens. In this case, we don't really need the shadows. It's just gonna do nothing there. But the highlights, it might do something useful. So let's find out. And this is actually a pinstripe. Didn't know that, but you can see it is. It looks awful, but it's kind of interesting that, oh look, this was actually had little or some sort of line pattern on this white shirt. It just got lost over the picture. So you can see in this particular case, it's adding these back in, but I don't like overall what it's doing to get that. Like, it's adding a lot in here. And this is a good example of what you could do is you could shadows and highlights this. And I think this is moving beyond the scope of this particular video, but what you could do is make a copy of this, shadow highlights this, and then use this and tone this down a little bit and bring it back over one that was not doing shadows highlights. So here, why not? I'll just do it real quick. I'm not going to go every step though. So if I do image adjustments, shadows, highlights, decrease the shadow because I didn't want to do any of that, increase the highlights, get some of this detail in here. So I'm getting this in here. And then I'm just going to kind of compare before and after. You can do that. One thing you can do right off the bat is set this layer to luminosity. And you can see that it gets rid of that kind of overall gray, and it adds quite a bit into there. Now I don't like what it did here because it's revealing splotchiness, which, I mean, we could spend the time to edit that out, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the eraser tool. Come on, eraser tool. There we go. I'm going to soften the brush, and then I'm going to, oops. Not the eraser tool. Yeah, I wasn't on the correct settings. So I'm just going to edit this out, and again, just tone it down a little bit. I don't like what I did here, so I'm going to tone that out. So I'm just erasing that layer. Now, you could leave this separate. When I ever do like changes to my thing, I generally like to get them merged in as soon as possible, though. So I'm going to merge that in. You can see that's what shadows and highlights and that worked in. So I kind of restored some of this part of the face here. All right. There are other tools. Like I said, there's just so many image adjustment tools. I mean, we can do brightness, contrast. Again, I actually think we're at a good spot here, but just to kind of showcase these brightness, contrast, this is a very straightforward one to use. You can increase the brightness or the contrast. So if I want to tone down the brightness or increase in this case, the contrast is probably a great one. You could do this. This might be good for like if you want to darken the hair. So what you would do is you would maybe use the Q key, paint a mask on the hair. I'm on the wrong one. There we go. So paint a mask on the hair real quick. Make sure you, again, swap back and forth. And again, I don't really, this is backwards. I don't really generally pay much mind to it when I do the quick mask. I just paint one thing, and it doesn't matter if it's backwards because you can always, after you exit quick mask, again, Q key, you can just invert it, which is under select inverse or Control Shift I. So maybe I just want to mess with just the hair. And then I come up here to image adjustments, brightness, contrast, and then maybe I'll increase the contrast just in the hair or something. Maybe darken it, just the hair. Again, Control H, hide selections. So you can see kind of darkening the hair. Just the hair area. And again, I kind of was very, very sloppy with the quick mask, but yeah, looking pretty good. So you can see we're really restoring, this one up pretty quickly. So you can see before and after. So we could obviously push this some more. There are some other ones in here, but I think I've pretty much pushed this one pretty far. So yeah, give some of those tools a shot. There's some other ones that of course you can try. I do plan to make some more videos on this particular topic, so that way we can showcase more, because it's very situational. What you have will determine what kind of tools you use. So there's definitely more to be discovered here. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Bust out an old family photo if you can, and give these tools a shot. Good luck, and keep on creating.